Our country is still in great trouble. We're such a divided nation, and it's not Donald Trump that divided it. It's been divided now for some time. And we need to come together as a people. We need to come together as a country. There are so many international problems, domestic problems, economic problems. We need to pray.
Well, the inauguration's right around the corner. Reverend, you will be at that inauguration. Normally, it's like the one day of the year in those 4 years of the presidency where the country can come together, where they can celebrate the United States all together. We're not seeing that happen this time.
Yes. Well, I hope that the country does come together. I saw when President Barack Obama was inaugurated, the people that came, whether you were with the left or the right, I think everybody was cheering him on, hoping and wishing him the best, praying for him. But I was there when George W. Bush was inaugurated for the first time, and I saw demonstrators and people that were angry and were upset with the process. And I hope that doesn't happen this time. And I know there's been a call for demonstrations. There's been a call for the left to show up and try to disrupt this inauguration. That's the wrong thing to do. We need to come together as Americans. And he won the election. Donald Trump won. And he and Mike Pence are going to be sworn in, and the process moves forward. And now we need to help this nation move forward.
And a new study shows Christians are the most persecuted religious group in the world. The director of the Center for Studies on New Religions says more than 90,000 Christians were killed in 2016 alone, 30% of them at the hands of radical Islamist terrorists. The Italian research group will release a full report next month. Wow, powerful numbers.
Yeah,
over to you.
Hey, have you heard about this? Just a crazy story out of New Jersey. Reports of dozens of blackbirds falling out of the sky randomly. Yeah, as many as 200 red-winged blackbirds, and those things are beautiful, by the way. They just fell out of the sky. This was 2 days before Thanksgiving. And get this, when the Division of Fish and Wildlife showed up to investigate, their results were inconclusive. They could tell that there was internal bleeding, but of course, that was from the trauma from the fall itself, but they still don't know why the birds fell from the sky in the first place. Now, there is a little bit of history here, and we still don't know for sure why these particular ones fell out of the sky. But a couple of years ago, we had a similar die-off, and it turns out it was from a farmer using some chemical on his crops, which are legal chemicals, by the way.
Everyone's not convinced, naturally. I don't know what I think about this, but it's leaving everyone on Facebook saying, "What the devil?"
What the devil?
Okay, so the photo, it appears to show a shadowy figure that almost looks kind of like a demon. It's been shared about 90,000 times, and and it's resurrected this devilish debate with users wondering whether they see an angel or a demon.
Yeah, why not an angel? Why do you say demon?
It's a winged demon.
Well, I was talking to Dave Nemeth before the show, and he's pretty sure it's a palm tree.
Yeah, it's
And
not
it's in
either.
Phoenix, so... Okay.
Cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome, or CHS, is a little-known disease that's caused by heavy, long-term use of various forms of marijuana. Symptoms of CHS include nausea and vomiting, and for an unclear reason, taking hot showers and baths seems to alleviate the pain. An emergency physician in Aurora, Colorado said that patients who suffer from CHS often come to the emergency room 3 to 5 times before they're accurately diagnosed. Since medical marijuana became legalized in Colorado in 2009, the cases of emergency room diagnosed CHS have doubled. As more states begin to legalize marijuana, doctors are eager to make sure CHS is on people's radar.
Australian health authorities have issued a warning after a sharp rise in cases of a mosquito-borne virus. Ross River virus infected 314 people in Victoria in 2016, nearly a 50% increase on the year before, said the state's chief health officer Charles Guest. Professor Guest suggested Bob Geldof and Midge are better musicians than they are meteorologists. Their 1984 Band-Aid prediction that there won't be snow in Africa this Christmas time has once again been proven wrong, and this time in spectacular fashion. The Algerian town of Ain Sefra, deep in the dry, hot Sahara Desert, was hit by a freak snowfall on December 19. It's the first time snow has fallen in the region in 37 years.
At about 11:30 in the morning on the southwestern coast of Chile, 7.6 magnitude quake, possibly just deep enough to absorb all of the energy. Ironically, this has occurred in an area, good news that it's sparsely populated, but on a rupture that gave us the world's largest earthquake in 1960 at a magnitude 9.5. So there is some damage that we're getting reports. About 41,000 felt very strong shaking, but nothing in the severe category. Authorities there are saying no fatalities, and that's what the USGS is telling us. We love it when it's green. That means a low impact. But Michael, there was some damage. And of course, we're going to continue to see those damage assessments come in, and we'll pass all that information. Of course, what they do right away, line up for petrol.
Europe freezes. Polar vortex pushing down through Central Europe, and another front to follow this one as well. When the radar map says intense, sea effect, snowfall, that's an understatement. 120-mile-per-hour winds blowing 6 feet of snow. Italy, Capricorta, snow drifts 9 feet deep. Snow all the way down to the beaches in southern Italy. Cyprus, Greece, Croatia blanketed. Thunder, snow, and floods in Germany. Water fountains in the Vatican freezing. Istanbul shut down. Bosphorus Strait shut down. Average temperature across the U.S. 11 degrees Fahrenheit. Satellite images of the rare ice storm and snowfall across the southeast U.S.
A rush on milk and bread, and the salt trucks are in motion. North Georgia now less than 24 hours away from a winter storm warning.
Yes, snow is on the way, and Governor Nathan Deal warning residents to prepare now and to plan ahead for this winter storm event. He's already announced plans to declare a state of emergency for 79 counties starting at noon tomorrow.
A series of earthquakes along California's border with Mexico since New Year's Eve has scientists raising their eyebrows. More than 250 small quakes, the strongest, a 3.9 magnitude, hit the region over the weekend. This so-called swarm of earthquakes struck the end of the Brawley seismic zone, which connects the San Andreas and Imperial faults. The major worry with swarms is they can trigger bigger, more dangerous quakes. But scientists say this particular sequence is too far from the faults to pose that risk. However, both faults are infamous for causing major earthquakes in the past. In September, another swarm hit the Brawley seismic zone, prompting the U.S. Geological Survey to warn of a potential magnitude 7 or greater earthquake. Known by concerned residents and scientists as the Big One, this hypothetical earthquake would likely devastate the region. For Newsbeat Social, I'm Matt Paul.
NASA confirms 2 massive space objects hurtling towards Earth. NASA recently spotted 2 massive space objects hurtling towards Earth. The American Space Agency says that one object is a massive comet, but has so far been unable to identify the other. While the American Space Agency has pinpointed one as a comet, the other has left it slightly more baffled. The comet is set to fly close to Earth this week, but the mystery object isn't expected to make an appearance until February. However, NASA scientists are not sure whether it is a comet or an asteroid. 2016 WF9 could have cometary origins, said Deputy Principal Investigator James Gerbs-Bauer at NASA's JPL. This object illustrates that the boundary between asteroids and comets is a blurry one. Perhaps over time this object has lost the majority of the volatiles that linger on or just under its surface. While 2016 WF9 is dark like a comet, it appears to lack the characteristic dust and gas cloud that defines a comet. On 25th of February, 2017 WF9 will approach Earth's orbit at a distance of nearly 32 million miles, 51 million kilometers, from our home planet. NASA said that the object is not a threat to Earth for the foreseeable future.
Stretching for around 100 miles in length, the 100-yard wide rift in the Larsen C ice shelf has grown rapidly in recent weeks. Just 12 miles of frozen material is keeping this enormous iceberg from drifting away into the sea. Collapsing ice shelves are not uncommon in Antarctica. As these pictures show, these fragmentations can dramatically affect the landscape, creating icebergs of all shapes and sizes. A team of British researchers have been travelling down to Antarctica to monitor the growing crack in the Larsen C ice shelf for several years, but they have been surprised by the dramatic expansion in the rift that's taken place in just 2 weeks in December.
Winter storms caused major problems from coast to coast this weekend. In the east, at least 3 people were killed on icy roads. As snowstorms cleared out, frigid temperatures moved in. The west has been getting blasted for days by waves of heavy rain and snow. Here's Carter Evans.
Rain and snow continue to pound the west. From Oregon,
oh, this is just such scary weather,
where whiteout conditions caused at least 350 crashes statewide, to California, where flooding shut down roads and forced this water rescue after a couple refused to evacuate. Here in Santa Cruz, the San Lorenzo River just keeps rising. It's getting dangerously close to homes, but they're not just worried about flooding here. They're also concerned about large debris that might float downstream.
Sit back and let it happen now.
Sherry Crouch lives right next to the river.
When the water flow comes up over my deck and these large trees start barreling down, if they hit one of the pillars, it could take my deck down, and that would be devastating to me.
In San Francisco, strong wind and rain knocked down trees and utility lines, leaving thousands without power. And in San Ramon Valley, a falling tree killed a woman at this golf course. Further east in Yosemite Valley, raging water is filling the Merced River, and mandatory evacuations are in place ahead of expected flooding. Along the California-Nevada border, warm rain falling in the Sierras is expected to melt snow and cause flooding along the Truckee River. That's prompting the governor of Nevada to declare a state of emergency.
This isn't an if, this is going to happen. We're doing everything that we possibly can to protect life, to protect homes, to protect kids.
Later tonight, the river could reach its highest level in more than a decade. Carter Evans, CBS News, Santa Cruz.
After a months-long battle, a Maine man will be allowed to wear horns in his state ID photo. He says the horns are part of his religion. After he legally changed his name, he was told he would have to get a new photo without the horns on his head for his new ID. He got tired of waiting, and after going to take the picture with the horns, which are actually goat antlers attached with fishing line, the RMV agreed to take the photo.
Now that the internet's been turned over to essentially the UN, they're actually talking about shutting it down for 24 hours. Millions of computer users across the world could be blocked from the internet this year as a global network will shut down. That's right, will shut down for 24 hours.
Facial recognition is no longer just sci-fi make-believe popularized by movies like Minority Report. Today, companies like Facebook, Google, and Microsoft routinely collect face prints from their users. Amazon reportedly scans faces in its physical shops. U.S. law enforcement has invested heavily in the controversial technology. Even casinos deploy facial recognition to identify as many faces as possible. And as the use of facial recognition software for commercial purposes grows more common, privacy advocates have developed a way to fight back. Berlin-based artist and technologist Adam Harvey has developed anti-surveillance clothing aimed to confuse facial recognition technology. The Hyperface project features patterns which then appear to have eyes, mouths, and other features that a computer can interpret as a face. Harvey unveiled prototypes of his project at a hacking conference in Hamburg, saying Hyperface clothing is based on, quote, overloading an algorithm with what it wants, oversaturating an area with faces to divert the gaze of the computer vision algorithm, unquote. Now, a report released by the Center on Privacy and Technology at Georgetown Law back in October found facial recognition is almost completely unregulated, and no U.S. states have so far passed comprehensive laws limiting the technology. As a result, roughly 117 million American adults are reportedly included in the FBI's shared facial recognition network. Now, as the face print grows more mainstream, privacy advocates say the danger posed to civil liberties is intensified by the day. Given that lawmakers have so far failed to implement regulations on facial recognition, the public is left to fight and manipulate machines on its own. Marina Portnaya, RT, Miami.
Prime Minister Netanyahu has never had a good relationship with President Obama. It seems like President Obama wanted to stick it to him.
Well, that's not the way policy should be made, to get even in the lame duck period when there are no checks and balances and you don't have to worry about it in the election. It's the most undemocratic thing a president can do, to tie the hands of his successor during the lame duck period. And what he did was so nasty. He pulled a bait and switch. He said to the American public, oh, this is all about the settlements deep in the West Bank. And yet he allowed his representative to the UN to abstain, which is really for a resolution that says the Jews can't pray at the Western Wall. Jewish and Arab students can't go to Hebrew University. Jewish and Arab patients can't go to Hadassah Hospital. Jews can't live in the Jewish quarter where they've lived for thousands of years. And he's going to say, whoops, I didn't mean that. Well, read the resolution. You're a lawyer. You went to Harvard Law School. Read what you've read.
Like this. I have to interrupt. I'm sorry. We're seeing Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu who's making remarks in Jerusalem. His response to Secretary of State John Kerry. Let's listen in.
I have to say that I'm surprised. That's what the Secretary of State of the biggest empire in the world has to say. This is one of the speeches that will conclude his administration, the Obama administration, in the Middle East. Whole countries in the Middle East are collapsing. Terror is everywhere. And for an entire hour, the Secretary of State of the United States talks only about the only democracy in the Middle East, a democracy that is one of the only stable places in the entire Middle East. We are now celebrating Christmas. Maybe Secretary of State John Kerry didn't see that Israel is the only place in the Middle East where Christians can celebrate Christmas in security, in peace, and happiness. Unfortunately, this doesn't interest the President of the United States.
Well, it's a symbol that embodies fear, violence, and, of course, hate. Tonight, a local rabbi whose parents escaped the Holocaust is actually sharing his thoughts after a swastika was spray painted on a sign at Hebrew Union College.
And that is where 9 on Your Side's John Genovese is joining us tonight live. John?
Well, it only took 20 minutes or so for the school to clean up this sign that thousands pass by each day. Police are still searching for whoever's responsible tonight, but the man we spoke with says hateful messages like this are something he's seeing more and more of.
My first thought certainly was one of shock, and then that quickly gives way to one of dismay.
For Rabbi A.B. Ingber, it's a symbol that shadows why his grandparents were killed and haunted his parents who narrowly escaped the Holocaust.
It seems that the climate at this particular moment in our American life is one that gives almost permission for people to venture out and to share their hate-filled thoughts.
علينا أن نستعد للمواجهة الجديدة القادمة مع إدارة أمريكية جديدة تعلن بشكل صارخ ووقح بأن إسرائيل والاستيطان يعني شرعي وقانوني وبعث وفد يعني لنقل سفرته من تل أبيب إلى القدس. أعتقد بأنه أي حماقة أمريكية ستؤدي إلى اشتعال الأراضي الفلسطينية وتتحمل الإدارة الأمريكية والغطرسة الإسرائيلية في استمرار الاستيطان تتحمل مسؤولية إعادة إراقة الدماء على الأراضي الفلسطينية.
Show of support on Capitol Hill for America's key ally in the Middle East, the House voting overwhelmingly to condemn that UN resolution concerning Israeli West Bank settlements. More than 100 Democrats voting with Republicans. They did not like the decision to abstain on the resolution. That abstention allowed it to pass. And here's the House Speaker, Paul Ryan, from the floor.
I'm stunned at what happened last month. This government, our government, abandoned our ally Israel when she needed us the most. These types of one-sided efforts are designed to isolate and delegitimize Israel. They do not advance peace, they make it more elusive.
Strong delivery there. Israel's ambassador to the UN welcoming the House vote from yesterday, condemning the UN vote that occurred over the holidays, saying it shows the strength of the U.S.-Israeli alliance.
The Israeli ambassador to the U.S., Ron Dermer. He is considered one of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's closest confidants and one of the few members of his inner circle. So this would be the highest level endorsement, or one of the highest level endorsements we've seen yet, of Trump's plan and his campaign promise to move the embassy from where it is now in Tel Aviv to Jerusalem and recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. What is it that Dermer said? Here are the comments he made, part of the comments he made at an embassy party for the holiday of Hanukkah. He said, I hope that next year the U.S. ambassador to Israel lights the menorah in his embassy in Jerusalem where the Maccabees lit it 2,200 years ago. Moving the embassy and recognizing Jerusalem as the capital of Israel would break with decades of U.S. foreign policy, which has held that the final status of Jerusalem is open to negotiations between Israelis and Palestinians. Jerusalem has always been intentionally an open-ended question, especially because it's one of the most sensitive and one of the most complex questions in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. How is it that Palestinians have reacted to the idea of moving the embassy to Jerusalem? Well, predictably, they're furious. PLO Secretary General Saeb Erekat has said moving the embassy may violate international law, and he also said that the PLO would consider revoking their recognition of the state of Israel. Moving the embassy, therefore, may have some drastic consequences on not only Israeli-Palestinian relations, but also perhaps U.S.-Palestinian relations and U.S. relations with the Arab states in the region.
North Korea ringing in the new year with an ominous development. In his annual New Year's speech, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un suggesting that the regime is in the final stages of testing an intercontinental ballistic missile, an ICBM, marking a potential breakthrough in Pyongyang's weapons program. Elizabeth Pran is following the story for us out of Washington. Elizabeth?
Hi, Greg. Well, in his annual New Year's address, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has now hinted to both North Korea and the world that his country is close to testing an intercontinental ballistic missile and that these tests have, quote, reached the final stage.
Now into the video that shows the desperation and depravity of ISIS, and we want to warn you this material is graphic. ISIS releasing footage of a child soldier as young as 10 years old shooting and beheading Kurdish prisoners in Syria. Kitty Logan is on this story. She's live in London for more on this. Kitty.
Yes, well, Bill, it's not the first time we've seen these kind of brutal images coming from ISIS. It's not the first time videos emerged of extremists using children either as soldiers, as executioners, or as suicide bombers. But the dynamics of the conflict in Syria are starting to change, and
An explosion went off just moments ago at a military base outside of Chicago.
Peace and security.
Professor, it says here that the chip could trace the purchases of excessive weaponry and stopping terrorist attacks before they start.
Do not get that chip.
He who testifies to these things says, yes, I am coming quickly. Amen. Come, Lord Jesus. That means he can come back at any moment. He can come back right now.